The text came through while I was standing on the deck with a cup of coffee in my hand. Just one sentence. Your lake house is beautiful. Jessica will be moving in for a while. That was it. No, can she? No, would you mind? Just a decision. Already made. I stared at the screen for a long minute. The air smelled faintly like pine and cold water coming off the lake. My coffee had gone lukewarm, but I kept holding it anyway. Honestly, at first I thought maybe I'd read it wrong. I even read it out loud. Jessica will be moving in. Like it was a weather update or something. You ever get a message that hits your stomach before your brain even catches up? Yeah, that. I wish I could say I got angry right away. Slammed the phone down. Called my mom and told her absolutely not. I didn't. I just stood there like an idiot on my own deck. My name is Megan Sullivan and I am 33 years old. And I guess you could say I've been the responsible one in my family for most of my life. The quiet one. The one who fixes things. The one who sends money when someone's car breaks down. Or when the electricity is about to get shut off. Or when my sister Jessica has another temporary situation. Temporary situations with Jessica have a weird habit of lasting years. I walked back inside the house with the phone still in my hand. The floorboards creaked a little under my feet. The place still smelled like fresh wood and cleaning solution. I'd only been living there 4 days. 4. I swear. That number kept echoing in my head. 4 days of quiet. 4 days where nobody needed anything from me. Then my phone buzzed again. Another message from my mother. Her divorce got messy. She needs somewhere peaceful to start over. Somewhere peaceful. Apparently that somewhere was the house I'd spent almost a decade saving for. The house that cost $685,000. The house I bought so I could finally breathe. I set the phone on the kitchen counter and just looked at it. No anger yet. Just this strange, familiar pressure building in my chest. The kind that comes when you know exactly how the next conversation is supposed to go. I was supposed to say yes, because that's what I always did. However, something about that text made me walk to my laptop instead. There was a file on my computer I hadn't opened in months. I clicked it before I could talk myself out of it. The folder was called Family Contributions. I stood there for a moment staring at the file name on my screen. Family Contributions. It sounded harmless, almost boring. But when I opened it, rows of numbers filled the screen. Dates, notes, transfers. At first it was small things, the kind of help that feels normal when it happens. Car repair, $900. Electric bill, $2,100. Then I noticed the name that appeared more than anyone else's. Jessica. My sister. If you grew up in a family like mine, you probably already know how this works. Every family has roles. Mine had been decided a long time ago. Jessica was the one who needed help. I was the one who fixed things. I remembered a call from a few years back. Jessica had just quit another job, and my mom sounded worried. She's having a hard time right now, Mom said. How much I asked. There was a pause before she answered. $5,000 would help her get back on her feet. $5,000. Back then, I didn't question it. I just said yes. A week later, Jessica posted photos online from a weekend in Napa. Wine tastings, poolside pictures, new sunglasses that probably cost more than my groceries that month. I called Mom. You said she needed rent money. She did. Mom replied quickly. Then why is she in California? She deserved a break after everything she's been through. That sentence stuck with me. Jessica deserves. Somehow that always meant Megan will handle it. I scrolled further down the spreadsheet. Another entry pulled up a different memory. Jessica had crashed her car one winter. Dad called me that time. Insurance won't cover the full repair. He said, "We're short about $4,000. Okay, I told him. Back then that word came easily. Okay. Looking at the spreadsheet now felt different. It was like reading a long record of every moment I chose, peace over confrontation. The numbers kept going. Medical bills, credit cards, Emergency loans. When I reached the bottom of the page, the total sat there waiting. $138,000. I leaned back slowly in my chair and read it again. 138,000. All sent to the same house. All sent because someone always needed saving. And now, apparently, my sister needed my house too. My phone buzzed on the kitchen counter. Another message from Mom. We'll talk later. Jessica's already packing. I stared at the screen for a long moment, realizing something that probably should have been obvious years ago. In my family, decisions about my life had a strange habit of getting made without me. I kept staring at the number at the bottom of the spreadsheet. $138,000. Seeing it written there made it feel unreal, like it belonged to someone else's life. For a moment, I wondered if I had opened the wrong file. But the notes beside every transfer were mine. Car repair, rent help, emergency medical, Jessica credit card. Line after line, year after year. I closed the spreadsheet for a moment and leaned back in my chair. The refrigerator hummed quietly behind me, the same steady sound filling the kitchen while my mind tried to catch up with what I'd just seen. Then my phone rang. Mom. I let it ring twice before answering. Megan, she said in the same casual tone she always used. Did you see my message? Yeah. So, you know Jessica will be staying with you. Not asking. Just stating it again like it had already been settled. I took a slow breath. You didn't think maybe we should talk about that first? Oh, honey, she said quickly. She's family. That word gets used a lot in my house. Family. Like duct tape. It covers every crack in the story. Her divorce has been brutal, Mom continued. She needs somewhere stable for a while. Mom, I said carefully, she lives 3 states away. So you have plenty of space. I just moved in. And that single word landed heavier than she probably realized. I rubbed my forehead. This house isn't a guest house. It's a lake house. Megan, she said. It's huge. It's mine. There was a brief silence on the line, then Mom sighed. The way she always did when I wasn't cooperating the way she expected. You're acting strange today. Am I, yes? She said. This doesn't sound like you. She wasn't wrong. The version of me my family knew would have already said yes by now, but instead my eyes drifted back to the laptop. 14 years of yes. Mom, I said slowly. How bad is Jessica's situation? She just needs time. How bad? There was another pause. Then she said, almost casually, her credit cards got a little out of control. A little, well, about $70,000. I blinked. $70,000. She didn't mean for it to happen, Mom said quickly. She still spent it. She was under pressure. I let out a quiet laugh before I could stop myself. You know what's funny, I said. What I've been under pressure for 14 years. Mom didn't respond to that. The call ended a minute later without either of us really saying goodbye. I sat there for a moment, then opened the spreadsheet again, because something about that number she mentioned kept echoing in my head. 70,000. It sounded familiar in a way I couldn't explain yet, and the longer I stared at the screen, the more my brain started connecting pieces I hadn't even realized were related before. I sat there staring at the spreadsheet again. $138,000. The number didn't look dramatic. That was the weird part. It just sat there at the bottom of the screen, quiet and flat, like it had been waiting years for me to stop rushing past it. I scrolled back to one of the older entries. 2011. $900. Dad's truck. I remembered that call right away. Dad had sounded stressed, which was rare for him. Megan, the transmission is shot, he said. We can't get to work without it. How much about 900? I sent it that same night. A month later, I went home for dinner, and the truck was sitting in the driveway like nothing had ever been wrong with it. I thought the transmission was broken. I said. Dad shrugged. Turned out it wasn't that bad. Mom came in from the kitchen and answered for him before I could say anything else. "Oh, honey, we just used the money for some other bills." Some other bills. That phrase had covered a lot of things in my family. I scrolled down again. $5,000. Jessica rent help. That one pulled up another memory fast. I had called Mom after seeing Jessica's pictures from Napa. "You said she needed help getting back on her feet." "She does." Then why is she in Napa? Mom hadn't even paused. She deserved a break after everything she's been through. Jessica deserves. That sentence had been floating around my family for years, and somehow it always ended the same way. Jessica deserves. Megan pays. I kept scrolling. Car trouble, credit card help, last-minute emergencies, money I sent too fast to think about because I was trying to keep the peace. Looking at it now felt less like generosity and more like a record, not of kindness, of habit. I had been trained to respond before I had been taught to question. When I reached the bottom again, the total was still sitting there, $138,000. 14 years of saying yes in small ways that added up to something huge. Then my phone buzzed on the counter. A message from Jessica. "Mom said you're excited for me to stay with you." I stared at the word excited for a second, then typed back. "Who told you that the typing dots showed up almost immediately?" Then her reply came. "Mom said you already said yes." I read that twice, because the truth was, I hadn't said yes. I hadn't said anything at all. And somehow that had never stopped them before. Jessica's message stayed on my screen longer than it should have. "Mom said you already said yes." I didn't reply. Instead, I turned back to the laptop. Something Mom had said earlier kept circling in my head. Her credit cards got a little out of control. $70,000. I opened the credit report the bank had sent me during the house purchase. At the time, I'd barely glanced at it. The loan officer had walked me through the basics, confirmed my score was good, and that had been enough for me. Now, I scrolled through it more carefully. Student loans, paid, auto loan from years ago, closed, mortgage approval, new. Everything looked normal until one line stopped me. Business credit account, balance $78,000. I stared at it for a moment, waiting for the feeling to make sense. It didn't. I don't run a business. I never have. I clicked into the account details. The account had been opened 2 years earlier. Name Megan Sullivan. Social Security number mine. Credit history attached to my profile. A strange quiet settled over the kitchen, the kind that happens when something is clearly wrong but your brain hasn't caught up yet. I kept reading. Transaction history filled the screen. Furniture stores, airline tickets, electronics. Large purchases spread across dozens of transactions. Then my eyes landed on another section. Authorized user, Jessica Sullivan. My sister. I blinked once and read it again, just to be sure. Jessica Sullivan. "No," I said quietly to the empty kitchen. I picked up my phone and called her. She answered on the second ring. "Hey, Meg. Mom said you saw the messages." "Jessica," I said carefully, "are you using a credit account under my name?" There was a pause, then a short laugh. "What? A business credit account?" I said, $78,000. "I have no idea what you're talking about. It lists you as an authorized user." "That's impossible." "Jessica." Her voice shifted slightly. "Why are you accusing me of something like that?" "I'm not accusing you." I said, "I'm looking at the account right now." Another pause. Then she said something that made my chest tighten. "Mom handled all the paperwork for that." I leaned back in my chair. "Mom handled what paperwork I mean. The account stuff." She said quickly. She said it was temporary. Temporary. It was supposed to help me get through some things. With my credit. "Look, Megan," Jessica said, sounding irritated now. "You're making this a bigger deal than it is." "A bigger deal?" "It's family," she said. "We'll figure it out. $78,000. My name on the account. Her spending." I ended the call without saying goodbye. Then I looked back at the screen. There was one more detail listed quietly in the account file. The mailing address used when the account had been opened. My parents' house. For a long moment, I just sat there staring at it, trying to understand how something this serious had been sitting inside my life without me realizing it. I kept staring at the account details like they might rearrange themselves if I waited long enough. They didn't. $78,000. Opened 2 years ago. Under my name. Authorized user Jessica Sullivan. I clicked deeper into the transaction history. The first charge was $7,000 at a furniture store. The next one was $3,000 for airline tickets. Then another furniture purchase, more flights, electronics, restaurants, clothing. Dozens of transactions spread across the same year. It wasn't one emergency. It was a lifestyle. I picked up my phone and called Mom. She answered immediately. "Megan, I was just about to call you." "Mom," I said calmly, "did you open a credit account in my name?" There was a pause. Not confusion, not surprise, just silence. Then she said carefully, "Why would you ask that?" "Because I'm looking at it." "What account?" "A business credit account." I said, $78,000. Jessica is listed as an authorized user. The silence on the line stretched longer this time. Then Mom exhaled slowly. "Oh, honey," she said, her voice softer now. "That situation got a little complicated. Complicated. It was meant to be temporary." "Temporary for who?" "For Jessica," she said quickly. "She needed help getting through a rough patch." "With my credit." "You've always had excellent credit," Mom replied. "The bank approved it immediately." "That's not the point. We weren't trying to hurt you. You used my identity. That's a very harsh way to say it. What would you call it?" Mom hesitated for a moment, choosing her words carefully. "We helped your sister when she had nowhere else to turn. With my name. You weren't using it," she said. "Your credit was just sitting there." I closed my eyes for a second. "That doesn't mean it belongs to you." "Megan," she said, her tone sharpening slightly. "Families help each other." That sentence again. Like it explained everything. "I never agreed to this. We thought you'd understand. You didn't even ask." "You would have worried," she said. "And we planned to sort it out before it became a problem. $78,000 is already a problem. She'll pay it back. When things stabilize for her." Stable. Jessica had been getting stable for most of her adult life. "Mom," I said quietly, "this could legally be considered fraud." Her voice hardened immediately. "Don't start using legal language with your own family. I'm stating facts. You're making this sound criminal. It is serious." Mom lowered her voice, like she was explaining something obvious to a child. "You have a good job. You just bought a lake house for almost $700,000. You're not exactly struggling. That doesn't give anyone the right to use my name." "We didn't take it," she said quickly. "We borrowed it. Borrowed it." I let out a short, quiet laugh. "You borrowed my identity." Her patience finally snapped. "You're being selfish." Megan. There it was. The final card in every conversation we'd ever had. Selfish. I ended the call before she could say anything else. Then I sat alone in the quiet kitchen, staring at the laptop screen. My house, my credit, my debt. And apparently tomorrow my sister was planning to move into my life as if none of this mattered. The next morning, my phone buzzed before I even got out of bed. A picture message. I opened it. A huge white moving truck sat in a driveway somewhere, the back door already rolled up, boxes stacked inside. Under the photo was a text from Mom. All packed. We'll be there by noon. I stared at the screen for a while. The room smelled faintly like the cheap detergent I'd used on the sheets the night before. No apology, no explanation, just arrival time. I typed one word. Why? The reply came almost immediately. Because Jessica needs a place to stay. I didn't answer. Another message popped up. You have plenty of room. Then another. Don't make this difficult. I set the phone down on the nightstand. No yelling, no arguing. Honestly, something in me just went quiet. I got up, walked into the kitchen, and opened my laptop again. The credit report was still on the screen. $78,000. My name. My parents' address. Jessica's spending. I opened a new document and started typing. Not a message. A list. Every transfer I'd sent over the years. Every emergency. Every temporary situation. The total sat at the bottom again. $138,000. Then I downloaded the full credit account history. Every purchase. Every date. Every charge. $78,000. The numbers looked strangely neat on the screen. Clean. Like a ledger someone had carefully kept. My phone buzzed again. Jessica this time. We're about 2 hours away. I typed back slowly. Who told you that you could move in? The typing dots appeared. Disappeared. Appeared again. Finally, her message came through. Mom said you wouldn't mind. Wouldn't mind. I looked back at the documents on my screen. 14 years of help. $78,000 in debt under my name. And a moving truck already on the road. For the first time since the text arrived, I realized something simple. I wasn't angry. I was preparing. I didn't spend the morning arguing with anyone. Honestly, I didn't call anyone at all. Instead, I sat at the kitchen table with the laptop open and the printer running. Page after page slid out slowly. First was the spreadsheet. 14 years of transfers. Dates. Notes. Small explanations I'd typed years ago so I wouldn't forget what the money was for. At the bottom sat the same number again. $138,000. I printed every page. Then I opened the credit account history. $78,000 in purchases. Furniture stores, airline tickets, electronics, restaurants. A year's worth of spending that had never once touched my wallet, but somehow ended up under my name. I printed that too. The printer made a soft, grinding noise every time another sheet came out. After a while, the sound stopped bothering me. If anything, it started to feel steady, like a clock. When the printing finished, I stacked the pages and slid them into 2 plain white folders. Folder 1, Family Contributions, $138,000. Folder 2, Credit Account Documentation, $78,000. The third folder took longer. I opened a rental agreement template online and started filling in the blanks. Short-term residential rental agreement. Tenant Jessica Sullivan. Monthly rent $3,800. Security deposit $7,500. Then I added one more clause. Tenant agrees to begin repayment toward $78,000 in outstanding credit debt associated with an account opened under the property owner's name. I read that sentence twice before printing it. 3 folders. 3 quiet stacks of paper. My phone buzzed again. Jessica. About an hour away. I typed back. Drive safe. A thumbs-up emoji appeared a few seconds later. That almost made me laugh. An hour later, Mom called. We're almost there, she said. Okay. You cleared the guest room. Right. We'll talk when you get here. There was a pause. What does that mean? It means we'll talk when you get here. Mom sighed. You're being strange today. Maybe. You better not start some kind of drama. I looked down at the folders on the table. Mom, I said calmly. I didn't start anything. The call ended a few seconds later. I carried the folders into the dining room and set them on the table in a row. Then I waited. About 40 minutes later, I heard tires crunch slowly over the gravel driveway. A heavy engine idling. Doors opening. Jessica laughing. Mom talking loudly. They sounded comfortable already, like they were arriving somewhere they belonged. I stayed standing beside the table. 3 folders, 3 decisions already made. And the strange thing was, when the moment finally arrived, it didn't feel dramatic at all. Just quiet. The front door opened before anyone knocked. Jessica walked in first. sunglasses pushed up on her head like she'd just arrived at a vacation rental. "Wow," she said, turning slowly in the entryway. "This place is even nicer than the pictures." Mom stepped in behind her, already scanning the room. "You should really get a rug for the entryway," she said. "People track dirt in." Dad came in last, closing the door quietly behind him. For a moment, none of them even noticed me standing by the dining table. Jessica dropped her purse onto a chair. "So, where's my room?" she asked casually. I didn't answer. Mom finally looked at the table. "What's all this? I prepared something." I said. Jessica laughed. "Oh, please tell me you didn't make some kind of chore schedule." "No," I said. "Something a little more serious." I slid the first folder across the table. Mom opened it and began flipping through the pages. At first, she looked mildly confused. Then the pages started turning slower. "What is this supposed to be?" "That's 14 years of financial help," I said. Jessica leaned over her shoulder. "Are those transfers?" "Yes." Mom closed the folder with a small thud. "You kept records of money you gave your family." "I didn't give it," I said quietly. "I covered things when someone needed help." Dad spoke for the first time. "How much are we talking about? $138,000. Jessica let out a sharp laugh. "That's ridiculous." I opened the second folder. $78,000, I said. "That's the balance on the credit account opened under my name." Jessica's smile faded. Mom's head lifted quickly. "Megan, every charge is listed," I continued. "Furniture, flights, electronics." Jessica shook her head. "That's not what you think. It's exactly what it looks like." Mom crossed her arms. "You're making this sound like some kind of crime." "It is serious," I said. "My name is on that account." Dad rubbed the back of his neck and looked at Mom. "You said this was temporary," he muttered. Mom shot him a quick glance. "It was supposed to be." Jessica turned to me. "So what are you doing right now? Threatening your own family?" "No," I said. "I'm setting terms." I slid the third folder forward. "If you stay here, you stay as a tenant." Jessica stared down at the page. "What, $3,800 a month?" I said, "plus a payment plan on the $78,000 debt." Mom let out a sharp laugh. "You're charging your sister rent. I'm protecting my house and my credit." Jessica pushed the folder away. "This is insane." Dad looked at me, his expression uneasy. "Megan, this feels extreme. Opening a credit account in someone else's name is extreme." I said. Mom's voice rose. "Families don't drag each other into legal threats. Families also don't sign each other up for $78,000 of debt." Jessica's face hardened. "So that's it. You're choosing money over your own sister." I shook my head slowly. "No." She crossed her arms. "Then what are you choosing?" "Boundaries." The room went quiet for a moment. Mom grabbed her purse. "Come on," she said to Jessica. "We're leaving." Jessica hesitated, looking at me like she expected me to stop them. I didn't. Dad lingered for a second longer near the door. "You're making a hard line," he said quietly. "I know." He nodded once, then followed them outside. A minute later, the truck engine started. The sound faded slowly down the gravel road. I stood there in the quiet house, the 3 folders still open on the table, realizing that sometimes the hardest part of setting a boundary isn't the argument. It's what happens after the room goes silent. The truck noise faded after a few minutes. First the gravel, then nothing. I stood there for a while looking out the window at the empty driveway. The house felt quiet again in a way I hadn't noticed before. The refrigerator hummed softly behind me, the same steady sound that had been there all morning. Part of me expected the phone to ring. Mom usually called after arguments, sometimes 10 minutes later, sometimes an hour. The conversation almost always sounded the same. "You're overreacting. Family comes first. You'll regret this." But the phone stayed silent. I sat down at the table again and looked at the folders spread out in front of me. 14 years of help. $138,000. And the credit account. $78,000 under my name. For a long moment, I just looked at the papers. Then I closed the folders and stacked them neatly together. The anger I expected to feel wasn't really there anymore. Mostly, I just felt tired. About 20 minutes later, my phone buzzed. Jessica. I hesitated before answering. What I said. Her voice sounded different than earlier. Quieter. You really would have reported it? Yes. For real? Yes. There was a long pause. You're serious about all of this? I've been serious for 14 years. I said. She exhaled slowly. I thought you'd just handle it. She said. Like you always do. That part, at least, was honest. Yeah. I said. I know. That had always been the pattern. Jessica got into trouble. I fixed it. Jessica needed money. I sent it. Jessica made a mess. I cleaned it up. Until now. I guess things changed, she said quietly. They had to. Another pause. Then she said, Mom's furious. I'm not surprised. She thinks you turned your back on family. I leaned back in the chair and looked around the quiet kitchen. Jessica, I said, family doesn't mean someone gets unlimited access to your life. She didn't argue. A moment later, she said goodbye and hung up. No apology. No promises. Just silence again. Later that evening, I walked down to the dock and sat by the water. The lake was calm and dark, barely moving. For the first time in years, I realized I wasn't waiting for the next emergency call. That feeling was strange at first, but after a while, it started to feel something like peace. And if you've ever been the person in the family who is expected to fix everything, you probably understand how difficult it can be to say no. Still, sometimes the only way to protect a relationship is to finally draw a line. That night, sitting there by the water, I understood something simple. For the first time in a very long time, nobody needed anything from me. And I was finally allowed to just sit there,